blessed unity with the L-O-V-E. Love is the solution, so set your love free with the L-O-V-E. Further evolution and blessed unity.
Good morning, self-lovers. Welcome back to the Self-Love Show. I am your co-host, Dawn Light. My beautiful sister Trish is with us in spirit today. She is sent her light. She's taking a test today for school. So we have an amazing guest today, and I'm going to read her bio in a second. But in case you're new to us, we just want to thank you for joining us and tuning in. We go live on Facebook and YouTube weekly, and we're everywhere. So you can seek and find just gems of shows over the last 4 years. We've been doing this for 4 years. Woohoo! It's such a labor of love, and we're so grateful for the message of self-love, because it's a net that goes far and wide and touches every single person, because our existence is love and we're based in love. And why not have deeper tools, deeper resources to understand yourself, your connection to source, and amplify deeper relationships and love in your life on every level. And so our mission is to spread that in every way. And it comes in all shapes and sizes for everybody's type of curriculum. So we've had a wide array of guests, and just so grateful to give this gift into the world weekly. And for our viewers that tune in weekly, we love you. We appreciate you. Thank you for tuning in and listening. And yeah, so today's exciting. We have an amazing expert with us today, and I'm going to introduce her. So the topic today is loving myself out of narcissistic abuse with Dana S. Diaz. She will be sharing how she discovered who she was and realized the self-respect needed to reclaim her life and end the transgenerational abuse that had been perpetuated by the women in her family. So powerful. So Dana is a wife, mother, author, and the bestseller book Gasping for Air, The Stranglehold of Narcissistic Abuse. Dana has had lifelong experience with narcissistic abuse, beginning in childhood. Her education in journalism and psychology at DePaul University in Chicago gave her the ability to accurately verbalize and express how narcissistic abuse creates confusion and conflict within victims, so that she can help other victims know they are not alone and better understand their own circumstances. Oh, beautiful. Welcome, Dana, to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to, hopefully something we say resonates with somebody who is in one of these situations, and, we can help them get to a better place.
Yes. Yes, I agree with you. It's such a potent message to spread the message of like how to untangle. And we'll get into the meat and potatoes of how you untangle.
Yeah.
But I just want, for our viewers, if you're new to the show, I also too suffered from narcissistic abuse and child abuse, just like Dana here. So we have a common language and what's learned through that. So let's jump into it. Tell us more. First off, for those that don't know what narcissistic abuse is, why don't you give us a context for it? And then
absolutely.
Understand.
Absolutely. I appreciate that, because narcissism is such it's a word that is used so loosely, and we have to be very specific because there definitely is a spectrum. So I'll touch on a few things here. Narcissist, the word actually comes from the name of the Greek god Narcissus, who liked to look at his reflection in the water because he was apparently so handsome and was in love with his appearance. And we see these people on social media, and honestly, you cannot hate them because they look as good as they think they do. And that's wonderful. I wish I had that kind of self-esteem. Are they bothering anyone with it? Maybe they're annoying you, but they're not harming anybody with their very high level of self-esteem. What we are talking about, though, with narcissistic abuse, it's very simple when a narcissist abuses you. But the type of narcissist that abuses you is the type of narcissist that either in childhood they were exalted to the point that they actually thought they were superior to everybody and entitled to favoritism and are above the law and rules and such, or they felt slighted or neglected in some way to where they seek to have that level of importance and to feel that admiration and praise, but they do it with harmful tactics. I mean, there's no other way around it. So what I'm looking at is this kind of a narcissist that is abusing other people in order to feel important. These are what we call malignant narcissists. I always say it's kind of like tumors. You can have a benign tumor that's just there, it's not bothering you, but a malignant tumor is going to cause you problems. It might even kill you, and it has to be cut out.
Wow, powerful. Yeah, I really do resonate with what you say. I think that looking back on my experience, I think my father was a combination of both because he was the family bully. He bullied everybody,
Yeah.
his parents, and I think it was a bit of neglect because he's the firstborn. And I do think that he needed that sense of superiority over others. I could see him seeking that power in the way he related to others, and especially with my mother and my brother and I, and we were allies. My mother and brother and I were allies in the journey together of like, how do we overcome this experience, And yeah, I would love to know more about your experience if you're open to sharing more, because this is how we learn that, we don't have to just settle for these types of relationships in our life, and we can be aware and awake to like, oh wow, this isn't actually love.
Exactly. And, it's unfortunate that it does definitely stem in childhood. I think your ideas about yourself and your worth, are developed by whoever is in charge of you. Theoretically, it's your mother and or father. Sometimes it's your grandparents, whoever, if you're adopted, whoever is raising you. Unfortunately, some of us aren't raised. I don't like to use that word with regard to my mother or her husband. He is not my biological father, but he was my father growing up, the only father I ever knew. But unlike you, I was actually the one at odds with everybody. I was a teenage pregnancy, so mom didn't want me. She actually had her tubes tied immediately after my birth. So I'm not sure she wanted any children. And it's kind of startling to think that doctors would do that for a teenager back then, but they did. But she brought me into this world. She was forced to keep me. And, she didn't want me any more than the man she married wanted me. He is the king of all narcissists. It was very difficult. Whereas you're saying you and your mom and your brother were kind of united, and at least you had that bond, that unity against the narcissist. I was on the outside of that.
That's so painful.
I was being physically and verbally abused. My mother was kind of neglectful. And when I would go to her, because she's my mother, she's supposed to protect me. Even though we had this strained relationship, even when I was little, she was always kind of emotionally and physically detached from me. But I would go to her because that's my mother. Mom, he said this. Mom, he did this. Look at the marks on my back, She would just say, well, don't provoke him. Or I would be told, well, it's because he loves you so much that you're able to affect him to where he gets so angry with you. And she's putting these ideas in my head that I'm responsible for the abuse that he inflicted, and that's what love is. And sometimes she would just completely gaslight me, negate my experience, turn her head. There were things that happened and she'd literally look the other way or keep washing the dishes and pretend like she didn't see or hear anything. And this continued into adulthood until we finally just went no contact, because it's such a diminishing thing to do to a little girl. I always tell people to think about, everybody knows a 4 or 5-year-old little girl. Imagine somebody telling that little girl, nobody's ever going to love you. You should have never been born. I shouldn't have to pay for you because you're not my biological child. You're another man's child. You'll never be. You're not smart. That toast you're eating is going to make you fat. Your hips are widening like a middle-aged woman. All these things that I heard. And I'm 48 years old. And even though I have come so far in my healing, there are moments where that tape replays in my head. The physical abuse was bad, but it went away. The bruises healed. The marks went away. But that verbal stuff, that developed my sense of who I was. I went out into the world struggling to connect with people. I struggled at school. I didn't trust anybody because I couldn't even trust my mother to protect me. I didn't feel safe. I was made to feel like there was something wrong with me
Absolutely.
at the core of me, and that I didn't even belong here. And I don't know how to describe that to somebody that did not experience that kind of childhood, but to diminish a little girl to that level. Of course, I went out in the world starving for any crumb of affection or attention. And of course, I was a people pleaser. And of course, I was a codependent. And of course, it didn't matter what I needed. It didn't matter how I felt, as long as somebody else was giving me whatever that, basic need is. I don't mean any offense, but I think I likened it in my book to, I was it's kind of like going to a third world country and finding a kid that hasn't eaten for weeks and giving them, like a little French fry, anything. I was starving for something. So of course it was like serving me up on a silver platter to a narcissist who expects servitude and ego fulfillment. And I was willing to do anything and everything and jump through every hoop for those times where I would get that attention and affection that I so desperately needed, because nobody ever taught me that I was worthy and that I was enough. And nobody ever taught me that it was okay to love myself. I hated myself.
Oh gosh, so painful. I really understand what you're saying, because it's my lived experience too, was abuse, and a lot of verbal abuse. And
Yeah.
it has taken me, I'm 49, and it has taken me, I finally shattered the rejection pattern, because it felt such deep rejection on every
Yes.
level. Like, and the truth is I was rejecting myself, and I got that at a soul level. Like, oh, I incarnated into this family because that's the spiritual lesson I needed to embody and understand. I'm no longer willing to reject any part of myself and reject myself and see myself as broken or unworthy love, right? And then I started realizing, like, untangling from that perspective of, that I'm wrong and bad, because that was anything I did, no matter what I did, it was always wrong. Like,
yes. Yeah.
so, but I thank God I had a mother that was very unconditionally loving, and so I got like two perspectives, and that even created confusion, because I was like, what in the F, like,
Right.
this? And it's very, very, very mentally confusing for a young child to understand, because you're forming your identity, and there's these deep set beliefs that are in, like, your subconscious is taking on all these identities and core beliefs about yourself. By the time you're 7, you're seated, you're coded with this, you're imprinted is a good word. You're imprinted with these core beliefs about yourself. And then you spend your adulthood untangling and digging up, if you're willing to look at it. If you're willing to be brave enough to say, actually, that doesn't work for me anymore, and I know it's mine. And if you're willing to own it, and you're willing to deeply explore these images and these reflections, because everything is a reflection of ourself at the end of the day. And I had to get that, because I was like, what is this? Why am I literally seeing the face of evil in this person? Like, literally wanted to kill me. Literally. Like, it tried to many times. And tried to kill my mother. It was just, it was really, it was the most, maybe, like, I don't really like to say this very often. I don't really disclose too many details, but like, make me eat my food under the table like a dog, and make me stand in the corner all day with my nose touching. And if I wasn't touched, when he checked, just beat me till I bled. So I endured like severe abuse. And I made a C in 3rd grade, and I hid in the bathroom, because I knew if I went home, it was my first time making a C. And I was really, like, I would have excelled. Like, I would have been the, like, superstar, go to college all the way through kind of kid, but I didn't have that support really to be able to. So I did it later in life, because I didn't have that footing. And so I spent majority, and how it shows up is abuse and I'll share this and give you the floor back for a sec, but how it shows up is like age stages are really, really important. And what happens to you at each age stage, wherever that trauma is your parts of you get frozen and stuck there. And whatever belief structures are formed at that age stage, then you have these reoccurring patterns that keep surfacing out of that stuff until you wake up to it, until you see that there's more to this than just this. And I'm willing to deeply dive into this to really excavate what this stuff is that isn't really me. And when you're in a pattern and you're in a loop.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's the first telltale sign. If you were like experiencing a pattern, then this is where you can take radical responsibility that I'm willing to take 100% ownership of I create my reality. And that's like, whoa, I created this reality. Like, whoa, when you really get there with yourself and go, oh my gosh, on a soul level, I chose this family.
Yeah.
And I started to think like that and let that in and stop blaming, because I placed so much blame on my father and like hated him for the way he treated us because it just felt so unfair. And I would see other families having so much love and connection, and I would just weep, when I would see a daughter and a father have good, I'd just bawl my face off. Like, I don't understand, as a young child. And now, God bless my dad, he's gone, but I cleaned the slate between us. I didn't leave any stone unturned around it all. I dissolved the curriculum. I have a great relationship with my husband and my child. I transformed it. I mean, I was dedicated. Like, I was like, I will do this till I die. Like, I have to get to the answers of all this stuff, because it's what I incarnated for, and I knew it. And I feel on a soul line, I check mark, like I completed it. And so, yeah, I was just going back to the age stages really quickly. Like, age stage 7 is where I was really mostly stuck, because that was where the predominant trauma, and it shows up as patterns of inability to keep oneself like grounded and like ability to show up in life for yourself. And so I would have a job and I would lose it, or I would make finances and then it would go, and then I just never could keep stability in my life until my later years, because I had to work on the patterns. So it was basically all of that formed in me this inability to trust myself, just like you. And I didn't trust anybody, and I had a hard time trusting life, and most importantly myself. And so the curriculum really was about trust at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I had the opposite experience. I was even as a kid, and even now at 48 years old, for me, I insist on stability. I have to have structure. I have to do this. I eat the same things pretty much every single day, like nothing, there is no variation. But for me, it's always been, I realize now, what makes me feel safe, because I know what to expect. There's predictability. And so I'm better able to handle the other stuff that I can't control. But, it's kind of interesting when we're talking about narcissistic abuse. One of the things narcissists do is, they control everything. They control everybody and everything. And yet it's us as victims that sometimes exhibit some of those traits. And one of the ones that I've had to kind of realize is my need to control. I try not to be bossy. It's not meant as, like I'm trying to control other people, but it's to make me feel safe, so that I know what everybody's mood is going to be, how to moderate everything, how to make sure I know what to expect. But it's very interesting too, because I was that kid that I was never enough. Nothing I ever did was enough. Nothing I ever said was smart enough. So I was the overachiever. I was honor roll. I was, I'm going to go make this much money. I'm going to buy a car. I'm going to buy a house at 19 years old. I'm going to, go to college. I'm going to get, I did everything I was supposed to do. Always, even up to a few years ago, like, something's got to make my mother and stepfather look at me and say, good job. Do you know, I've never, at 48 years old, they have never, neither of them have ever said, I'm proud of you to me, ever.
And that's what you need to say to yourself, right?
And that's the thing, is that,
Is it?
you know, you have to, it's kind of interesting because nobody should ever have to raise themselves. You know, the raising is supposed to be what our parents do or our guardians. And it took me, like you, until I was 45 years old. It had to be a life-altering situation for me to finally wake up and say, okay, I apparently need to mother myself and soothe myself. I need to learn to regulate my own emotions. I need to learn to give myself permission to feel how I feel and to pat myself on the back when I think I've done a good job and when I think I'm enough. And I need to, you know, and thank you, by the way, for talking about the age stages, because I do say that all the time, you know, that by 7, I always say you're kind of hardwired. You're wired for how you think of yourself the rest of your life. And it doesn't go away. It's still always going to be in the back of my head. I'm still getting there. I unfortunately decided that I should write a book about my childhood because so many people were so interested in the book that's out. You know, how do you come to be in a relationship like that? How could somebody like you be in a relationship like that? Well, because of my childhood. I didn't know I deserved better. I had no idea that I was worthy of anything more than the nothing I was supposed to be. And that's what I was made to feel about myself. And again, I want to express this. It's just something that I always feel is very important to say. If this resonates with anybody out there, listen to me when I tell you, Dawn is here. I'm here. You know, we're sharing our stories. We are much more enlightened than we were. We are healing, which is a forever journey. You're never fully healed. You're always on it. But listen to me when I say, even just days ago, I was laying in bed just sobbing because something triggered something very deeply that you think you're okay, but there'll be that thing or that person that says that wrong thing and you stumble back a little bit, and that's okay. We all have those moments. We all have those days, and you just have to learn that it's okay and give yourself permission to not be perfect and to take care of yourself. Because the one thing I learned in all of this journey, in my childhood and my former marriage, especially when I became a mother, I realized that I had to take care of myself and be my best self, or at least the best I could be given the situation, for my son. But now that he's grown and gone and he's moved into his own house and everything, I'm left with myself, and I'm like, oh, but I have to take care of me now for me. And that's okay to do that. It's not selfish. It's not a bad thing. It's necessary. It's absolutely necessary, especially if you are trying to heal. But I just wanted to express that even if you're healed and enlightened, it's wonderful, but you're still going to have those days. And that does not mean that you're any less than what you were. You're just human. And that's all it is. We all are.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and it is true. We spend our lifetime really finding the deep misidentifications that were formed in our youth. And, you know, it's really important to remember that the ego is always seeking safety, comfort, and control, right? And
Yes.
that's a telltale sign to know that, okay, we're not our body, we're not our mind, we're not our emotions, we're consciousness experiencing itself. And it's okay if the ego is surfacing to try to protect you, because that's its job. And it's not about staying in a fighting place with it, but we are here to learn to tame our ego and listen to the higher self within, the God within, the self within, the big S, right? And so it's like learning the tools and principles that can help you do that. And that's what I teach my clients. And like I teach like how to actually overcome these patterns, and not just overcome them, but dissolve them all the way in consciousness. And that's what we're going for here, is like completing the curriculum altogether. You don't have to settle. You don't have to live for it, because at the end of the day, it's going to keep populating in your perceptual filter through others, through your relationships with others,
Mm-hmm.
the stuff that's unresolved, which is the unresolved emotional material from the abuse, from the moments in time. When you're triggered, it's yours. And when it's surfacing, it's a juicy, beautiful opportunity to be
Yes.
the part of yourself that's aching for love, that's hurting. And you actually have to embrace, one of the principles of spiritual psychology that I like share all the time is healing as the application of love to the places inside that hurt.
Mm.
And when you can apply this principle to yourself, it's really gold, because it actually is like a soothing balm that comes in and like wraps that part that's hurting and says, you did nothing wrong. It's okay to have these feelings. You did
Right.
nothing wrong. And I can't tell you how much I had to tell my inner child that about. I had to go back to each tragic, really hard moment that was, and the truth is you're never reliving it again, but the memories and the imprints are there, and you have to embrace the young one that feels terrified to experience that ever again. But the truth is if you don't work on the unresolved emotional material that's caught in your body, in your nervous system, if you don't work on it, then it's going to surface again and again. You're going to be in that attractor field that's going to draw in the character type that's going to be like, guess what? You're enrolling me to play. That's powerful. You're that powerful that you enroll people to play the part so that you get an opportunity to clean and clear the material. And until it's cleared, you're going to keep attracting those dynamics. And that's why they say, this is an old saying, like, you can move a million miles away from your tragic situation and people, but you're going to go over there and you're going to attract the same character types, the same situations, because it's vibrationally what you need to learn and grow through and complete inside yourself. And that it's masterful the way creator, God, source, whatever you want to call it. I have all the names, divinity, the one that has a million names and beyond, right? It's masterful the way it's crafted, because the truth is we're having one relationship with self at all times. There is no other, and it's illusion to believe that we're individuals having these individuals experiences. We're sharing in the collective consciousness of love. And when you realize that, oh, it's not about becoming more love, I can't do that. It's about seeking and finding the barriers inside ourself that are against love. And those are like the core misidentification that I'm wrong, right? And that's really shame-based, right? Because there's a lot of shame that comes in with healing abuse, right? It's like so shame and guilt riddled. And it's wrapped in a myriad of web of confusion that's like, how do I sort through all of this and find my core identity of who I really am, the I am, and untangle and let go of the deep misidentifications of I do it wrong, I'm bad, I'm not worthy, I'm unlovable, right? All the things that can come into those are core curriculums that we just sign up for as a soul. Say, all right, that family's going to fit what I'm coming to learn. And they're going to seed and imprint me with the perfect things that are going to help me have this entangled web of stuff to sort through. And then I'm going to finally break through, and my purpose and my gifts and my soul qualities are underneath it all once I learn to polish my diamond. And so that's what I do with people is I help you polish your diamonds so your gifts can come through so loud and clear with no ifs, ands, or buts, just like it's so fully expressed. And so that's the gift. Like I'm so grateful that I attended the school I went to, because it helped me literally like take it off like an old coat, lay it down good. And it's so powerful that my dad went into the hospital to die the last week of my practicum. And we were that complete. And he was my relationship project through a whole 2 years of graduate school. I leveraged him, and I sat in trio process over and over and over again on every occurrence, and just looked at it and been like, oh my God, that's my grandfather. Oh my God, that's my dad. And just like coming into love with all the hurt parts and just sobbing and writing letters and burning. Like, I mean, and healing was so radically deep. So radically.
Yeah, there's a lot there. You're brilliant, by the way. But yeah, I mean, we can go into, self-sabotage and self-fulfilling prophecies and all that, but it's absolutely true. And I noticed that pattern in my life. I just kept repeating things, or I would, find tendencies towards those situations that made me feel the way that I was made to feel in my childhood. Because as awful as it was, there was some strange, I hate to use the word comfort, but maybe familiarity is the more appropriate word. And, people are afraid of change. People are afraid of the unknown. So we stick with what we know because we know how to navigate it. Even if it's not nice, we know how to navigate it. But I love what you said, because, it definitely speaks to my experience about how our life, no matter how nice or not nice it was, leads you to where you're supposed to be and to where your true purpose is, because the irony of my life was that, coming out of that childhood, I knew like by the time I was 10, 11, 12 years old, I needed to help other kids, that were victims of abuse, because child services wasn't helping me. The authorities, the police, school nobody could get me out of that situation. And then when I was ready to go to college, I actually didn't want to go to college. I wanted to go to beauty school, but my narcissist stepfather said, no child, suddenly I was his daughter. No child of mine is going to beauty school, because that's not real school. You have to get an education at a university, because of course his nephew was going to become an engineer and this one was going to become a doctor, So I had to be something worthy enough to brag about. Not that I ever was, but I ended up going to DePaul University because I was Catholic and I had gone to Catholic school my whole life. I figured, why not go to Catholic University? Thank God I got in. They took me. But I went there having no clue. Like, what am I going to do here? And just the way life led me through my education. Immediately as a freshman, it was, you're really good at public speaking. Oh, you're really good at writing. We want you to write this and write. I was even offered my first opportunity as a ghostwriter on a book, like an actual book, at 19 years old.
Wow.
And thank you. But the thing is that I had no clue. I would have been perfectly happy going to beauty school and doing hair and makeup my whole life. But it's interesting that I got that education. Now, when I graduated with my degrees, got journalism and I minored in psychology, didn't do anything with them. Why? Because I was in my relationship already with my narcissist ex. I spent 25 years with him. He moved me away from the city. He did not want me to pursue any kind of career in journalism or, because you have to remember, a narcissist does not want you to be successful or experience joy or achievement or, nourish your potential. You are supposed to be nothing. And I was comfortable there because I was nothing in my childhood. So he had me cleaning houses with his best friend's wife in this podunk town. And boy, I could clean a house like nobody's business, though. I was good at that. I was that overachiever, still, like, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it 110%. But once I got out of that marriage, once I came to my realization and had that deal breaker moment where I was like, okay, hold on here. My whole life has been dictated to me. My whole life has been what other people told me I am and I should. And I finally made decisions for myself. And you want to know the ironic thing? That divorce from my ex and that cut from, mom and the narcissist stepfather just happened between 3.5 to 4 years ago.
Wow.
And in that short time, because of the steps I took to come to a better understanding of things, it's kind of funny how everything came full circle. That education in journalism and psychology I somehow took that journal that I was keeping because I was being gaslighted so bad that I honestly was not sure of my reality anymore. I turned it into a book. And guess what? I have written 2 more books. And so the one is published. The next one about the childhood is coming probably later this summer. It'll be out. And then another one will be out. But it's like in 3.5, 4 years, that's, to me, that's my pat on the back. That's my good job, girl. You know, what's interesting is what you said about how I had no idea. There were several points in my life, you know, full disclosure, that, you know, and even within recent times where I questioned whether I wanted to be here anymore. And I'm glad that I'm still standing here and that I can be an example. I'm not perfect, but I will never refer to myself as broken or damaged, because I'm not. I'm affected, but I'm not broken or damaged. I'm a whole person with a whole heart.
Beautiful.
And I somehow decided that I have always been that. Even my mom used to tell me, "Oh, why can't you just listen? Why do you have to experience things to really understand them?" Well, it apparently is just it's a core of who I am. And so I think my soul needed to experience that childhood and experience that marriage so that I could do what I had always been passionate about as a child. And in between, somehow I was, you know, forced to get that education so that I could write and I could speak and I could relate and communicate as best as I could my experiences to other victims. So again, it's that full circle, but you really have to be in tune, you know, and kind of come to that realization, because I could have so easily fallen into that victimhood where, you know, nobody would even question if I laid in bed all day and was depressed and collected disability and just could not function. Nobody would question it because of the life I've lived. But there would be no book that has given people strength to leave their toxic relationships. There would be no podcast interviews that would, you know, somebody might hear and that they could realize that they're in the same situation or that they can relate in some way and improve their life. There would be none of that. And so I truly feel that we're all here for some reason and for some purpose. And if we can get to that point where we can look past the stuff, I kind of always liken it to being a flower in a garden, where I've always had all these weeds growing and overshadowing me, covering me up, subduing me. Nobody could see me. I wasn't being nourished because I couldn't get the sunlight. I couldn't get the rain, and they're sucking the nutrients from the soil. But now that these weeds have been plucked out by themselves or on my account, you know, I am blooming, I am flourishing. And it feels, when you can live your life authentically and live your passion and your purpose, let me tell you, I mean, I just took that big deep breath, but that is so symbolic because you can breathe, you feel, you know who you are and you know why you're here. And that is so different from the first 45 years of my life, where at any one of those points I could have easily taken my life and not been here at all. And it makes me sad when I hear of other people in that circumstance. So, you know, it is really important to kind of get to that point. Oh, thank you.
Oh, so beautiful. Your journey is just so profound, and congrats on the books that have just
Thank
channeled.
you.
Like, that is a testament when you arrive past whatever curriculum you struggle with in life. Everybody's got their own, right? No, and
Yeah.
we're all human. We're all humaning together, and we all have it. No one's exempt from the curriculum journey. It just might look different from you. Ours had to do with child abuse and overcoming this like narcissistic thing. And it's different for every person. And so I just want to give space to that and say, you know, keep going, keep being brave. Like, look at this brave soul here. Dana is so brave. It takes a massive amount of bravery and courage to like own it and step forward in it and own your light in it and own your truth in it and be brave and say, you know what, I can do this. And put this, you're forever making a change on the planet. And you don't even know how many voices and hearts you're touching through your own personal experience. And I commend you. I celebrate you. I'm like, it's a yes, 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 like so powerful on every level. And thank you for being brave, because it takes bravery. And I thank myself too, because the self-love show wouldn't be here, and I wouldn't be having a voice. Like, this is a healed version of my voice. It took me long time to heal this, because I was told to sit down and shut up all my life. So I had a lot of like, I didn't have a healed voice for a long time. And now I speak my truth. I don't have a problem speaking my truth, but it took a lot of healing to get there. And so I just let our healing be an encouragement for your own healing, for whoever's watching. We love you. We support you. We want you to heal. And that's the whole purpose and point here of just sharing Dana's gorgeous message of like, it's gold, it's valuable, like choosing yourself over and over again, regardless of the outside circumstances, is not selfish, and it's not narcissistic. It's actually choosing to be self-honoring of yourself and listen to the intuition, the God-led intuition inside, to lead you forward up and out of whatever circumstances are challenging. And their challenges are the way through. And so, yeah, I just wanted to say that and celebrate you, Dana. And I want to spotlight you for a moment, if you're welcome to that. And why don't you share a little bit, like share with us something that you desire from your heart to share today, and we'll give you the floor for a moment. Oh, whoops.
That's okay. You can have the floor too. No, I think it's important, like you said, to, not just be self-aware, but not to be shy about speaking your truth and owning your truth. Something I've had to learn, only, in my 40s here, is that you're not going to be enough for some people. I will never, ever, ever in my entire life, there's nothing I could do to ever be good enough for my mother and stepfather. But there's other people I'm too much for, that think that I'm too loud, I'm too open, I'm too something. And the beauty of that is that I have found people, and maybe not as many as I'd like, but there are people that I'm just right for. So I think now that I can come to that idea of like, not everybody's going to like me, not everybody's going to agree with me, not everybody wants to be my friend. Unfortunately, I've been exiled from multiple parts of the family because of my openness, and because I'm speaking things that polite society does not want to hear and people don't want to hear. It's easier to push me aside. I still have to, there's no better way to find your self-respect and your self-love than kind of having to stand on your own 2 feet and by yourself, but going back to that garden I talked about, even a few years ago when I was just divorced, I'm 45, I'm a single mother now, fully, in charge of my son financially, medically, and otherwise, because of course my narcissist ex signed us both off and just moved on. I was scared, and, I didn't have a mother or a father or, a sibling or anybody to turn to. I had been isolated from friends and extended family. I didn't even know who to turn to even confide in my fears or anything. So it was sad that I had myself. I had no one else. But the profound thing that I learned, and it's a question that I challenge everybody, it's been the game changer for me. I remember laying in bed one night and just asking myself, what do I want? And that can be on so many levels. That particular night, it was, what do I want in the scheme of life? The big picture. And we all have that. And I challenge everybody to ask themselves that question, because I knew what I wanted. I had gone to school and somehow got a degree in journalism and psychology. I still wanted to help victims of abuse. I still wanted to write. I wanted to travel. I wanted to be married even. I just couldn't be married to that man. So just basic things. And the beautiful thing is once you see that, I mean, if it's what you really want, if you're being really honest with yourself, you will see it and you won't unsee it. You cannot unsee what is true in your heart. And so even unconsciously, I feel like I started to enact the steps towards those goals. I took my journal that I was keeping, my record of atrocities in the house, the things he was saying and doing, and I developed the stories. I typed them out, and then eventually it became a manuscript, and eventually it became a published book, which has now led to interest in the next books, which I never meant to write, but, people are unfortunately resonating with it. But, even marriage, I'm remarried now. And having been that person in the past who thought, oh, I'm damaged goods and nobody will ever love me. Maybe my stepfather was right. No, I found a man, God love him. I'd known his family 20 years and he'd always been there. But, we're married now. And what a beautiful, healthy relationship. Do I have times where I still act like that little girl, a little childish? Yeah. But I'm aware of it and I'm aware of my tendencies and he's understanding it more. But the most important thing is that whether it's him or these other people that, now, like I said, going back to that garden, now that the weeds are gone and I can see there were always other flowers there, rooting for me. I just couldn't see them beyond all the negative stuff, all those weeds. And it between my husband and these other people that had always been there, they're supporting me. I say it's kind of like having a crutch. Like I was down, I was knocked down, and I just needed somebody to help me stand back up. And then I needed them to help me kind of like a crutch, put one foot in front of the other and just keep going. And eventually I learned to walk myself, just like you help, your babies, they don't know how to walk until you get them up on their feet and you help them take that first step and the next step. And the next thing you know, they're running off and you have no control over what they're doing. But it's such a beautiful thing when you can experience that yourself. So just know, even if you feel alone, because I certainly felt just completely destitute and alone, there are people there, and even us, we are here to support you. There are resources to help you, but I promise there are people in your life that will help you along, and do lean on them for support, because eventually through practice, you will learn to walk on your own. You will learn to love yourself on your own. And that question, I go back to, what do I want? Outside the grand scheme of life, ask yourself that when you're, for me, it was when I was starting to have a panic attack, I would get triggered. So I would dysregulate. What do I want? Do I need to feel safe? Do I need to remove myself from the situation? Do I just need to cry and release it? Do I need to talk to somebody? Whatever it is, if you need a banana popsicle, just do it. It sounds also childish, but I think soothing that need right in that moment. Do I need a nap? Because I know sometimes I do. I just need to sleep. What do I want right now? That will take care of it. That will help you regulate. That will get your nervous system down. It has taken me 3.5 years to be able to even sleep through the night because of my nervous system being so out of whack. But I promise you, just using those simple tools, and if you can't afford therapy or don't know where to turn to, just start with yourself. What do I want? Magical question. It will help you by leaps and bounds in many situations.
Wow, so beautiful. Thank you for sharing all of that.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to. I hope that will help somebody.
Oh, it's so delicious. Just everything you shared today is so good, and it speaks loudly to the people that might be experiencing some level of this. And and thank you, Serenity, for tuning in live with us today. Real quick, if you want to answer her question, she did ask, like, how did you make the choice to be brave?
Oh, Serenity, let me tell you, I'll be honest with you, it wasn't an actual conscious choice. I call it a deal breaker. In different circumstances in life, you have a deal breaker, but you don't know what it is. Like, for example, somebody who's an alcoholic, you can have interventions. You can tell them the million reasons they should stop abusing alcohol, but there's a deal breaker. There is something, and they may not even know what it is, that's going to make them stop abusing alcohol. It was the same thing for me with all these toxic relationships and the abuse. It was when I got to the point, I was 44, just turned, and I had been experiencing a multitude, and I mean a multitude of random physical symptoms. But then within a 2-week period, I dropped 20 pounds. I was 93 skeletal pounds. And the way people looked at me, they were scared. So it started scaring me, especially because I was having from, neurological, cardiovascular, digestive, all kinds of different random symptoms. Doctor after doctor, were throwing their arms up saying, we have no idea what's wrong. Long story short, I finally had a neurologist and a functional medicine doctor that realized that it was cortisol, the stress hormone that had been flooding my body for decades because I was living in fight or flight mode for so long that apparently it made me autoimmune and gave me a lung disease. So you hear this raspiness in my voice. It's because of this lung disease that's like having COPD and fibromyalgia, which explains all these random symptoms on top of the autoimmune reactions I was having. And at the end of 2019, the neurologist sat me down because I actually had to have a lung machine. I had to have a backpack oxygen machine, which I will be on after this because I'm getting dizzy even just talking. But this is where it gets interesting. He said, your body is shutting down. He said, your body basically is using every bit of energy it has left to keep your heart beating and your lungs going. But my breathing was going down to an 83% oxygen saturation level. 93% and lower was COVID. I was going down to 83%. So my heart was barely beating. My heart rate would go down into the 40s. I would get nauseous, feverish, weak, where I couldn't even stand up. And that's when it hit me. I never could have told you what my deal breaker was. Should it have been when my ex swung a crowbar at my head? Yes. Should it have been a prescription medication incident? Yes. Should it have been the knife and the gun and the domestic violence and the death threats that should have made me leave that marriage? Yeah, it should have been, but it wasn't. It wasn't until my own body turned on me. I mean, talk about a message. My body was screaming, get the heck out of this situation before something else kills you. And that is the moment that I made the choice that, what is the level of stress? What is the source of this stress? What is making me physically sick? Unfortunately, it was the abuse. And my mother and stepfather had, during that time that I was ill, had decided to cut ties with me, which, feeling, I think it was basically mutual. But then I had to divorce my husband. I just couldn't do it anymore. And so it was a very difficult time. I mean, talk about mourning deaths of people that are still alive, divorce, parents, and then the removal of family members because they decided that I was to blame for whatever, division that was occurring. So it was a very difficult time, but I had to make a choice at that point, whether I wanted to live or if I wanted to continue on this path that wasn't going to lead anywhere good. And that was the moment where I said, I choose me. I did not love myself, but I had enough respect for the fact that I wanted to continue living in this body so that I could be a mother to my son and keep going. And thank God that I did. But that's what forced me to choose myself. That's what forced me to go on this path towards self-love.
Wow. Powerful. Powerful.
Yeah, I wish it had been a conscious choice, but I think that at that point I had fallen into that victimhood of, well, this is just my miserable existence. But I think we all are meant for more and we all have that potential. We just have to realize it and pursue that.
Beautiful. Wow, your story is so potent. Thank you so much for sharing. Tell us how you work with people and, a little bit. I know you're you're really promoting your book right now, it sounds like, which is amazing. I can't wait to read it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, actually, right now I am focusing on, I had never meant to write more than the one book, but I just literally just finished the book about my childhood. It's actually going to the publisher tomorrow. And then I have another book that's written, but I got to kind of work on a little more, which will be the sequel to the book, which talks about all this other stuff, moving forward and the healing part and trusting again and finding love again and all that good stuff. But I'm going to need to take some time to make sure that story is told just right. So right now I am just focusing on the writing part of it. But certainly, I've had some gracious hosts like you interview me. And so I'm just getting the word out there right now, just about who I am and what I'm about. So I encourage everybody to follow me on Facebook or Instagram. I definitely post every day, just little tidbits of information, resources. And we even have Friday funnies because you have to laugh sometimes. We have to laugh at ourselves and at life sometimes, to get through. Yeah. So right now I'm just focusing on that, but I absolutely, if you go to my website, danasdiaz.com, you can reach me by email or message me on social media. Just to reach out. If you have comments, questions, I'm not an attorney, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a financial advisor. I can certainly point you to those resources, but more importantly, right now, I'm your biggest cheerleader, and I am absolutely here to encourage you and help you, to get wherever you're trying to go, the best way possible.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's good that you said your website. So it's for those listening, it's Dana, DANASDIAZ.com. And that way, for the podcast and people that are tuning in that way they can find you. And wow, what a blessing to have you on the show today and hear your powerful story of overcoming such a place where it feels like love was devoid. And I understand that feeling. And it's a really important experience, life experience, to reclaim ourselves through whatever hardship, whatever circumstance that's really seems like against us. And it's magically woven by spirit, and your gifts are in there. So just keep going. And I do want to make an announcement. So I have a beautiful offering for those that are seeking. It's a 2-day retreat coming up, and it's April 20th. And I'm going to put it in the chat here. And it's called Walk in Grace. And so this is a culmination of my heart-centered work over the, I would say 7+ years serving in USM and going through graduate school and learning the tools that I share with all my clients and how to untangle from really deep stuff that keeps us stuck so that we can shine in our leadership, our skills, our gifts, what we're here to give in the world. And it's like untangle from all those patterns that keep us held back. And so this is a beautiful experience. It's 2 days, and it's really about coming home to greater levels of grace inside, because when we are experiencing Spirit's grace in our world, things are flowing and connected and healing, and it's just so juicy, and it's a juicy place to live. And so this is a rich 2-day experience to guide you into this way of consciousness inside yourself and really come home to the place where things, you might not be able to drop into that level of existence and being inside yourself. And so we're going to have, each day we'll have a spiritual psychology deep dive process. I'm going to weave in prayer work, circle work, individual kind of, a Hopi ritual by yourself in nature. So there's a little bit of everything: dance, movement, sisterhood. It's a very intimate container. There's been only 10 spots, 6 are still available. And it's so lovely on every level. And I'm so excited to give this gift to you. So if you're interested, please reach out. Don't let money be a thing that holds you back, because I know COVID and all the things have created a lot of tight constraints for people. I really want to give this gift in the world, and I'd rather it be full than not. So please communicate your need. If you're really interested in it, speak up, raise your hand, send me a message. I'll work with you. And I'd rather you there if you feel called to the work. I'd rather you there, and I'd rather you sit in it than to not experience it. And so My heart to yours. So much love to you, and thank you for tuning in today. And yeah, thank you, Dana, for your bravery and your courage and your book that's in the world now, and your
Thank you.
overcoming. And I celebrate your new marriage and the love and the best health for you. May your health
Yes,
be best.
yes, it has been miraculous since I've been out of that toxicity, because there were multiple situations. I have gained my weight back to a normal weight. My symptoms have dissipated. Still have some now and then, but it's amazing, the mind-body connection. And so, yeah, absolutely, we need to love ourselves enough to take care of ourselves. And thank you for having me on, and thank you for being so vulnerable as well and sharing your history.
Thank you. Oh, just such a powerful day today shared with you. Thank you. It's such a gift
Thank
for all
you.
of us. I just want to say thank you to those that tune in weekly. We're so grateful for you. We're so grateful that you're brave enough to like take a look at deeper self-love and want to learn more. And we're so available to however we can support you. Let us know. We're really okay with crafting all kinds of shows to support all kinds of people. That's what this is about. And we just want to say thank you to the Muse, Scott Katamas and Love Coach Academy, Global Peace Tribe, and our beautiful VAs that support us to help the back end of the show. We love you. We couldn't do it without you. Thank you. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. You know, I'm a mom and I have a life also beyond this and serve clients too. So it's a very full expression, and I just can't thank you enough for the love you pour into the show to make it happen. And everyone that tunes in, we're so grateful for you on every level. And just in case you know, this will be populated out onto all the podcast platforms, so you can go find it later. You can find it on YouTube. And yeah, tune in next week. We'll be here, same time, same channel. And thank you so much for today. Have a good week. See you next week.